That is the most viral mac and cheese recipe I've ever seen on TikTok. It has over 60 million views and 2 million likes. That tells me that 2 million different people want to try this recipe. So today I'm gonna try it for you so you can work out if you should try it or not.
So starting off with the spice mix, it's garlic powder, chicken bouillon powder, and smoked paprika. You're just gonna mix that together and you're done.
Okay, so the spice mix is done. It smells delicious. The chicken bouillon is permeating in my nose. Hopefully it can permeate in the mac and cheese itself. But this is a good starting step, better than the spice mixes that I've ever used for a mac and cheese, which is exactly 0. Next up, we're gonna cook the pasta. So use some fancy pasta. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna use normal macaroni because that's all I could find in the store. And it's macaroni and cheese. There's no reason to go fancy. So let's use the normal stuff. I'm sure the result will be the exact same. As long as I get that crust and the right flavor, we can see what the hype is about. So I'm gonna chuck the pasta on the boil and then we're gonna jump into making the sauce, which should be the best part. Hopefully I can get that cheesy pull. I have more cheese than I could ever imagine in a mac and cheese. So ready to go full American and make the cheesiest cheese sauce I've ever seen. But first up, let's put the pasta on the boil.
So we're starting off by putting some water on the boil and we're adding our macaroni just like in their recipe. And don't forget to salt your water and use oil if you don't want the macaroni to stick together. And to drain the water, I'm actually using the toothpick trick, which is where you put a toothpick around the rim and then you close the lid on top and then you pour the water out. It leaves just a small enough gap that only the water can escape. It's super easy, way easier than using a strainer, and takes way less time. Now it's time to make our cheese sauce. You're gonna put a stick of butter in the pan, melt that down until it's all liquid form, and then it's time for the spice mix. Now this spice mix is really pungent, especially once you add it to the butter. And you're gonna add in a little bit at a time, and then you're gonna mix that in, and it's gonna start foaming up, and that's exactly what you want. That means the flavors are being infused into the butter and you're kind of like toasting the spices. I'm adding a little bit more here. I don't want to oversaturate it. I want to make sure it's well incorporated into my butter. And next up, we're adding some flour after we've properly toasted our spices. This flour is going to thicken the sauce, and then we're going to add the next batch. So you don't have to do the whole thing at one time. It's recommended not to because you don't want a big ball of flour in your pan. But once all the flour is added in, you can add your evaporated milk. And I don't know why hers is so runny, but you add your evaporated milk and you add your cream. I added my evaporated milk first, mixed it up, and now I'm adding my bottle of cream in here. And once that is all kind of like mixed up, the flavors are absorbed into the milk and the cream, then we can add a little teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and we're gonna mix that into it. Make sure to incorporate that as well. And once that's done, you turn off the heat and you add your cheese. Now, my cheese looks weird. I got a pizza cheese that is really cube, rectangular, prism-like, and my Colby Jack was not as orange as hers, but I got the same type of cheese. I got some cheddar in there as well, and we're mixing it up. I probably added a little bit too much cheese, but the instructions say 3 pounds of cheese. Anyways, now the cheese is in there. It's got an elite cheese pull. It's time to add the macaroni in there, and the sound that it makes, it's glorious. You gotta listen to this. It actually reminds me of something.
Mama, that's what good pussy sounds like.
Jacob, I told you.
The macaroni's done, the cheese sauce is done, and it smells so good. I can still smell the chicken bouillon. The cheesiness of this is next level, but it's ready to go. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Like, all it needs is that cheese crust on top. If it gets the cheese crust on top without curdling the cheese underneath, this is gonna be unbeatable. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's put this in the pan and let's see how we go.
So we're adding our mac and cheese into our tray here, and it's looking so cheesy. Mine's arguably more cheesy than her one is, and after you spread that out, you're gonna add a bunch of cheese on top. All I had was the weird mozzarella pizza cheese, but it doesn't matter as long as the cheese covers the top, because that's just there for the crust, which is actually key part of the mac and cheese. But after that, you're gonna put it in the oven. The recipe says 30 minutes, but I tried it for 30 minutes and I had a bunch of curdled cheese. I'm not lying. And so what I did was I put it in for 8 minutes and I had it on broil, and the top was nice and crispy and the rest of it was also warm. And look at that. The mac and cheese is out of the oven, and listen to the crust. The cheese is looking perfect. It's not curdled. So I'm gonna whisper so you can hear the sound of this. It's kind of like ASMR right now. And you gotta hear the metal spoon. The metal spoon's even better. Look at this. Yeah, that's nuts. And look at this insane cheese pull. Oh my gosh. That's nuts. And this is even better. Yeah, this is already a 9 out of 10. I don't care what anyone says.
The real test though is the flavor. Let's see how it tastes. And I added some salt because there's no salt in the recipe. So let's try this out. That's phenomenal. The key shining point of this dish is actually the evaporated milk. I can kind of taste it, but the chicken bouillon is definitely there. The Dijon mustard, the combination of those two flavors. This is, I hate to use like this phrase, but this is probably the best mac and cheese I've ever had. This is well worth 2 million saves and 60 million views. This is the best mac and cheese I've ever tried.